Today we are going to talk through the Columbia Climate School and the Green Mountains program, introduce you all to the organizations behind this effort, the Columbia Climate School, as well as Putney Student Travel. And we're also going to answer all the questions that you have about this incredible program and share next steps that you can take to join us this summer in the Green Mountains. Before we start, I wanted to introduce the folks that are on the call today. So on the Columbia side, we have Sandra Goldmark, the Associate Dean of Interdisciplinary Engagement at the Columbia Climate School. Sandra also is a professor of professional practice at Barnard College and the Director of Campus Sustainability and Climate Action at Barnard, wearing many hats. My name is Laurel Zimashihi. I am the Assistant Director of K-12 and Continuing Education at the Columbia Climate School. We're also joined by Becca Shumlin, one of the co-directors of Putney Student Travel, who is going to be joining us today to share more about the history and mission of Putney, as well as some next steps you can take to join us this summer. And we also have a summer 2024 participant who is going to be joining us to share about her experiences. Srishti is going to share a little bit about, about what you can expect on the Green Mountains program this summer. So thank you everyone for joining us. All right, so as I mentioned, we'll do some brief introductions to the organizations that are leading the Green Mountains program. We're going to do an in-depth overview of the Columbia Climate School in the Green Mountains program, talking about the student experience, some key program themes, teaching approaches, insights to Columbia experts that are leading the program, and an overview of a few lessons so you know what to expect on the program. We're also going to dive into a day in the life of the Green Mountains student. So we're going to be highlighting some of the experiences. And we're going to conclude by talking about program eligibility, application processes, and next steps you can take. We're going to leave quite a bit of time for questions, so feel free to put your questions in the Q&A at any time, and we'll be sure to address them at the end. And you'll also notice that the chat is disabled, so please use the Q&A. So the Columbia Climate School is Columbia University's School of Interdisciplinary Climate Research and Education. This was a school announced in July 2020, and it's the first new school established at the university in 25 years. The Columbia Climate School's mission is to develop and inspire knowledge-based solutions and educate future leaders for just and prosperous societies on a healthy planet. Columbia is a global leader in climate and sustainability education and has a long-standing history of earth and environmental science, education, and research long before the climate school was born. So our story actually starts 70 years ago with the founding of Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, or LDEO. LDEO was recognized as the #1 scientific institution in the US dedicated to earth and environmental sciences. And LDEO has been at the forefront of groundbreaking climate research. For example, the term global warming was actually coined in 1972 by Dr. Wallace Broecker, a renowned Lamont scientist and Columbia University professor of geology. The Earth Institute, which was established in 1996, is Columbia University's largest research institution. And it brings together over 750 environmental scientists, policy analysts, engineers, and other experts. And now is really the driving force behind many of the programs at the Columbia Climate School. The Earth Institute was created to address critical challenges at the intersection of sustainability, climate, natural hazards, and the relationship that we have as humans and the environment. Columbia Climate School is committed to offering interdisciplinary educational opportunities for graduate, undergraduate, and pre-college students, as we recognize that you all are the next generation of change makers and essential stakeholders in addressing the climate crisis. So our pre-college programs are going to show how earth processes, climate science, and sustainability can be integrated into whatever career path you want to pursue. A key focus of our pre-college programs is empowering young people to become community leaders. Since meaningful climate action often begins at the local level, we want to aim to equip young people with the tools to mobilize their communities and drive lasting change. So through our partnership with Putney Student Travel, we offer this exceptional summer experience to immerse students in this hands-on, in-the-field learning led by Columbia Climate School experts. These programs are going to provide high schoolers with this exclusive access to advanced climate content and research that's rarely available at this level. So now I want to hand it over to Becca, who's going to share about Putney Student Travel's history, mission, and goals.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As Laurel said, my name is Becca Shumlin. I am the co-director of Putney Student Travel, and I'll tell you a little bit about our organization and its history. So Putney Student Travel is a family-run organization that for the past 74 years has been offering educational travel programs for high school and middle school students all over the world. And our mission is really to provide opportunities for students to learn and grow and collaborate and explore their interests beyond just their bubble back at home, and doing all of that while keeping them safe. And we really aim to use summer vacation for education, and we view summer as an opportunity for growth and really encouraging our students to deeply connect with the world around them through immersion and meaningful experiential learning opportunities. So we run small group travel programs, as well as a series of larger campus-based programs like this wonderful one with the Columbia Climate School. And we run those across 6 continents. And what we really pride ourselves on is we maintain these long-standing relationships with contacts and communities across the globe. And this is really what makes these experiences so unique. Our students are able to step into these decades-long relationships and feel as though they have family wherever they go, and then carry those special connections with them long after summer is over. And we are based in Putney, Vermont. We work out of an old restored cow barn, which you'll see there, on a beautiful dirt road. And we have a unique collection of about 30 colleagues and program directors, all based here in the barn. Among our program directors, we have Peace Corps volunteers, former teachers, a licensed ship's captain, anthropologists, many other backgrounds, and each bring a vast array of knowledge and expertise and experience. They have various languages spoken, and they bring that all to the programs that we develop and offer to our students. And when you call us to learn more about a program or ask questions, you will be able to speak directly with the person who curates that trip and knows it and loves it so well. And those folks are in touch with our local contacts and experts on a daily basis. So they're able to tell you all about that. And we just love talking to families about our programs and encourage you to call us anytime. And then we're also on call all summer and available 24/7 while our programs are out in the field, ready to support for whatever comes up. Our phones literally ring next to our bedsides. And then just to tell you a little bit about our history. So as I said, this is our 74th summer as a family-run organization, and we are currently in our 3rd generation of family leadership, with my sister Olivia and I now at the helm as co-directors. We're also Putney's first female-led team, which is exciting. But Putney Student Travel was founded back in 1951 by my and Olivia's grandparents, George and Kitty Shumlin, who are pictured here. And they were both teachers and educators, and they were both deeply, deeply influenced by the war. And they were very concerned about kind of the state of the world that they were seeing. And they felt that what they were seeing was that there was more division than ever. And so in 1951, George and Kitty took a group of US-based high school students over to Europe by steamship on the very first Putney trip. And this was before commercial air travel. They communicated back home via Western Union telegram, and it was all a pretty radical notion at the time. George and Kitty actually had to get married in order to lead the trip because it was the 50s. And so I like to say that I personally probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for Putney Student Travel. But in the post-war era, The Putney programs were created really to help students get out of their comfort zone, to allow for unifying face-to-face interaction across lines of difference. And my grandparents saw that as a way to build and find common ground. And our mission has stayed true to this day. And today we feel that George and Kitty's founding mission is really more important than ever. And so we're so excited for the opportunity to collaborate with the Columbia Climate School and to elevate young, passionate voices and promote dialogue and participation around finding solutions to the climate crisis. And I'll now turn it back over to Laurel to tell you a little bit more about the program.
Thanks, Becca. I did not know that about your grandparents getting married to start Putney Student Travel. It's fun to know that the Shumlin family is really born from Putney's work, which is pretty exciting. So the Columbia Climate School in the Green Mountains is a campus-based program at Vermont State University's picturesque 165-acre campus. The students of the Green Mountains program are going to be joining a cohort of like-minded students from across the country and the world to collaborate and gain an understanding of the multifaceted aspects of climate change. They're also going to have a chance to learn about the roles that they can play in climate action and engage in meaningful conversations about taking action in their own communities. So you might be asking why the program is run in Vermont, because the Columbia Climate School, as you may know, is located in New York City. Well, Vermont is really the perfect location to learn about climate solutions, as we found that Vermont is a leader in the US for green energy, and it's really showing one country how a state can move the needle in the right direction when it comes to addressing climate change. Vermont has been able to build a more sustainable economy and build green jobs for its people, while also boosting renewable energy and energy efficiency. In addition, Putney Student Travel is extremely well connected in their home state of Vermont. And so it provides students the opportunity to really network and meet a diverse group of sustainability practitioners across the state to learn about on-the-ground solutions. So students will also in the program just have a whole amazing summer experiencing all Vermont has to offer. There really isn't anything quite like a summer in the Green Mountains. So this is our 5th year running the program. The dates are from June 29th through July 11th. So it's a 13-day, 12-night program. The fee is $6,890, and that is an all-inclusive fee that covers accommodation, your meals, program activities, field excursions and weekend trips, and transportation during the program. This is a pre-college program designed for students grades 9th through 12th, as well as rising 9th grade students. So I'm going to share a mini documentary that was developed last summer of the program, so you can really step into the shoes of a student in the Green Mountains program.
I'm very passionate about the water crisis, especially in Arizona right now and Mexico, because parts of Mexico I've recently had to state that they're literally out of water in the city. And then to actually physically be here and talk with people who are actually trying to come up with solutions and working in the fields, it's really cool. And to see the effects of seeing how clear it is here.
Each year we have 60 to 80 students that join our program, and we break them into smaller learning cohorts so they have an ability to work in small groups on activities and also have smaller group or one-on-one discussions with experts. One of the incredible things about this program is that we have students that come from all over the United States and the world. So this year we have students representing 6 different countries, and this program lasts for 2 weeks in Vermont. And that just really is a wonderful opportunity for students to conduct field work and to learn from the environment directly. We find that being outdoors is the best laboratory, and Vermont is the perfect place for that.
It's cool, right? I wanted to participate in the climate science program because our family, we do have discussions about climate change a lot. And I wanted to do it because, when you look around outside and like you hear about other tribes that like we're like so displaced now, and like all of our homelands are like gone, you know, unless it's like a reserve. And I really wanted to come here so I could learn more because it's for youth, you know, like what like we as a people can do, and it's something that I can like introduce to my family when I get home.
Across the 2 weeks, students learn from 6 different Columbia Climate School experts on a variety of climate topics. Everything from the science of climate change to thinking about how to build resilience in communities, how to communicate about climate change, policy, economics, and ultimately solutions. We also want to encourage students to learn how to debate with each other, how to do collaborative activities. And a lot of high school students don't have opportunities to engage in field work, so we have a lot of opportunities for them to go out into the field, collect samples, analyze these samples, so then they're kind of building their own scientific background and skill sets that will prepare them for college as well. We also visit Lake George to learn from the Darren Freshwater Institute, and they're doing research locally in Lake George, but also globally around climate.
Nature has just always been a big part of my life, you know. I'm named Precious Jade. It's what Chalchiwiti means. All my family, we all are tied to nature and what life is. But I think it's really cool that they are actively trying to come up with solutions and stuff. Like, I think that's a really important part of like actually seeing something done. It gives me hope and gives me like inspiration.
We are also joined by an alumna of the 2024 program. So I would like to invite Srishti to come join and share a little bit about your experience.
Okay. Hi, Laurel. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's great to be back. My name is Srishti. I am a sophomore from Belmont High School, and I live in Belmont, Massachusetts, and I'm a 2024 alumna of the program. Where would you like me to start, Laurel?
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. I think it's going to be really fun to hear about, your inspiration to join the program and your climate action project and answer any questions that students may have. So first, I would just love to hear a little bit more about what the inspiration or motivation was for you to come join the program last summer.
Yeah, of course. So I feel like my general interest in sustainability comes from a really young age, like probably back in elementary school. I remember some high schoolers did a presentation about climate change, and I think around that time, Greta Thunberg started doing a lot of activism around climate change. I think a lot of wildfires also broke out, and then I was just exposed to all these different kinds of things that were happening in the world. So there was always like a general concern for sustainability in my life, and I've always loved nature. I've always loved going outside and just interacting with nature. But in the back of my mind, I've always just been really scared of climate change, the potential effects and dangers. And then high school came, and I'm like, okay, I am done being scared of this. I want to actually do something about it. And so I joined my school's local climate action club, and we actually just met today. But we do different kinds of work in both our school and in our town, and we're working on different kinds of initiatives. So last around this time last year, I was trying to look for things to do during the summer, and I went to a local like summer program fair, and that's actually where I met Laurel, and that's where I became aware about the Green Mountains program. And I'm like, oh my God, this is such a unique opportunity. Like 2 weeks in Vermont, you get to learn about the general field of climate change, and you get to learn how to make change in community. Like you're not going to find a lot of programs like that. And I was just so inspired by this kind of work. So I just had to apply, and I'm so glad I did.
So are we. You were a huge component of the program. And I love what you said, where you said, you've been hearing about climate change, you care about the environment, and instead of letting it consume you, you were like, I'm going to do something about it. So that I think is really, really inspiring. So you come on the program, 2 weeks in Vermont. I would love for you to share a little bit about like the favorite lessons that you were part of, or any of the educational activities? Like, what were some of your favorite learning outcomes?
Okay. So in general, I looking back on the program, I like to break up what I learned into like the general field of sustainability and climate change and then climate action itself, like what we can do. So within the first thing I said, we learned like everything from like the science of climate change to like domestic and international policy. We did a portion about like circular economy, and I believe Sandra taught that, right? And I think
Yes, that's right.
she's going to do a portion on that later. We did like the history, the economics, and decarbonization. We learned all these different things. So that's within the general field of sustainability and just the interdisciplinary nature of it. So that was one part. And then the other part, which is mostly like climate action, like what we can do in our community, like identifying issues, like communicating with people. There's a segment about that within that documentary that was just shared. And Laurel led most of those like local climate action lectures, which were actually my favorite. There's like climate change in your community, and I forgot the exact name, but I liked the ones that were more action based. Those were my favorite. We learned through a variety of like lectures, field based activities, research, and simulations and more. It was just so interesting to have all these different exposures. The lectures were pretty intense. They're like college level, and they were to be taught by like college professors and PhD candidates, and it's really intense. It's a lot to soak in, but the nice part is that you're not expected to like learn all this for a grade. You're learning for the sake of learning, and I think that's one of the most important parts about this program.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, to really be here to learn with the hopes of taking ta- real action and making tangible change in your community is the goal. You know, we're not focusing on grades. There's no homework. There is a climate action project, but the goal for that is to bring it home and continue the work after the program's over. So it really isn't, we're not, putting a lot of pressure on students to learn, which I agree. I think is pretty a unique scenario. So
Absolutely.
outside of some of the academics that you shared, we have some opportunities to go explore Vermont. We have afternoon and evening activities. Do you have any favorite things that we did? I know there's some pictures of you on a hike here, but I don't know if that was your favorite.
Oh, I mean, that was just one of the activities we did where we explored like a local Japanese garden, and that was so nice. But that's probably not the highlight. We did a lot of day trips. We did that one day trip to Burlington, and we were brought to that power plant that was like, and Burlington is like 100% solar powered, right? That's true?
Renewable energy.
Renewable energy. That's right. So I was very inspired by that, and it was just very inspiring. And then it was also mentioned in the video that we went to Lake George and we talked to members of the Darren Freshwater Institute and some researchers from RPI. And I think that was also very interesting just to see what people are doing in real life. And also, Lake George is absolutely gorgeous. So that was one of my favorites. Um, so we did a lot of field-based activities that weren't necessarily full-on day trips, but they were more things we did in the afternoon. So the water quality testing, I think you led that, Laurel. Am I correct?
I did. Yes.
That was so interesting, um, and I just felt so grateful because not a lot of high schoolers, people my age, get opportunities to work in like nature like that, do that kind of research, that kind of field work. And one of my other favorite activities was the UN negotiation. That was super chaotic, but it gave us some nice exposure into what real world climate negotiation and policy looks like. And I'm glad I was given the role of being a climate activist and not a fossil fuel like lobbyist. That would have been difficult, but it was definitely eye opening and it was a lot of fun, but also very educational.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. And, as you're mentioning, we use a lot of different types of teaching pedagogies. So we use, field-based learning. We do debates and simulations because our philosophy is that we think the best way for students to learn about something that is so complex and requires a lot of creativity and collaboration to build solutions for something so difficult like climate change, you really need to have students in a hands-on learning environment where they have the opportunity to learn about, case-based scenarios and help you kind of think through creatively how to build solutions around some of those challenges. So I'm glad that that was a highlight for you as well. Okay, so I want to hear now about your climate action project. Tell me, well, you can tell everyone a little bit about what your plan was and where you are now.
Okay, so this is funny because I did come up with a project originally during the Green Mountains program. And then later, when I came home, I realized that it actually wouldn't work out. But then I just decided to apply what we were learning in the program to initiatives that my climate action club at school was already working on. So my original plan was implementing silverware within our school's cafeteria, and I was very passionate about that. And I talked to people in my school, I talked to the food department, and we would try to see what was feasible. And they said in their experience that whenever they've tried silverware, it would either get lost or thrown away, and they'd have to keep buying and restocking it. And that it was just doing, like, the main point is that it was doing more harm than good. And if there's anything I took away from the program, it's like you don't want to force a solution that's going to do more harm than good just for the sake of making change. It's not productive. It's not efficient. So so I decided to redirect my focus to existing projects we're working on and seeing how we can expand that more. So one thing that my school climate action club was working on was compost. So it sounds really simple. You just put the bin in front of you. Everyone puts their food in, and then it gets picked up. End of story. It's really not like that. There's a lot of financial thought that goes into it. It has to be financed somehow. And there's this issue that it was only being put out once a week, and there's only one bin. And we were like, this is not effective. This is not good for effective long term change. Like, we need to have this all days of the week. We need to make sure people are actually composting, and we need to get multiple bins. So these are some of the challenges we had to try and mitigate. We're trying to look at the budget. We're trying to see what's feasible. The good news is that our director of the food and lunch department is really like pro climate action, pro sustainability. So I'm glad we're on the same page in that way. But we're trying to see what's feasible. Another aspect of that was looking into biodegradable utensils. So we're trying to see if we can, maybe instead of implementing silverware, we're trying to see if we can have good biodegradable utensils and reduce plastic waste, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and all of that. So that was some things we were working on in the school. Sorry, tell me if I'm taking too much time.
No, this is really helpful because I think a lot of students who might be engaged in climate action projects already or are starting to think about what actions they want to take, these are challenges that, I mean, the specifics of your challenges are, specific to your project, but everyone's going to experience challenges, whether it be onboarding support from stakeholders or thinking about budgets and timelines and the logistics of it all. So this is really helpful to hear about. And like so were you able to overcome some of these challenges? Like, are we moving to the biodegradable silverware?
So we're working on biodegradable utensils right now. I think the main So one of the concerns earlier for biodegradable utensils was that it was slightly more expensive than regular plastic utensils, but I've been communicating with different like biodegradable silverware companies, and they're willing to offer it at a discount, which is great. Except that the other concern that our director has is that the quality might not necessarily be that great. So that's another thing we have to look into right now. And we were actually just discussing that earlier today while we were in our club. So that was a challenge. There's another aspect of the things that we're working on in the club right now, and I'd really love to discuss that.
Uh,
Um,
Okay, so you're working on utensils and composting. And real quick, what was one other project that you all are working on?
we so our local ice rink is currently under construction, and the building committee originally promised to have solar panels in the budget. The budget is $22 million. But then they said that there's no longer room in the budget for it, and they had to take it out for some reason. So our the club is very upset about it. I know people in our town are upset about it. So we're trying to find ways to convince the building rink to keep the solar panels on. We got like some articles published in our local newspaper, which was really nice. And I'm currently communicating with some people who are like town elections are right around the corner, and I'm trying to communicate with different candidates and see what their plans are. I'm trying to see just what's feasible. I know one of the candidates suggested looking into an investor for the solar panels and seeing if that's feasible. So we need to follow up with them right now. But overall, yeah, that's kind of the things that we're focusing on right now. It's been really
Those are
helpful.
three, yeah, those are three huge initiatives. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of the skills that we talked about in the program, such as like key communication to onboard stakeholder support and, thinking through challenges, as well as building a team through your club, but also like other folks, to really make these projects a reality are all things that I think you're doing really well. So keep up the good work, and we look forward to hearing how everything rolls out. I know you'll be successful.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Laurel. Like obviously thank you for letting me be a host here, but also thank you for the opportunity for me to attend the program. It was truly life-changing.
Oh, I'm so glad. So I'm going to share a little bit more about the program, but stick around because there might be some questions for you to answer, especially about the program and the Climate Action Project. But thank you so much for sharing about your experience.
Of course, I'll stay on for as long as I can.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So, as you heard in our discussion, we do place a strong emphasis on academics. And each summer, the program content, it varies based on the feedback that we receive from past participants. So, this summer's program themes are the science of climate change. We start off foundational so students can build on that knowledge as we go through the 2 weeks of the program. This includes talking about the greenhouse effect, introduction of the physics of Earth's temperature, natural variability, and anthropogenic change, as well as climate projections and models. We talk about climate impacts, both global processes as well as local impacts, which vary geographically and impact local ecosystems, economies, and communities. We have experts from the National Center for Disaster Preparedness that join to share about climate preparedness and resilience. They're going to talk about risk recovery and planning, as well as different mitigation and adaptation approaches. We have an expert that's going to teach on international climate policies and negotiations. So talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, as well as decarbonization pathways and the energy transition. So what are some transition strategies that we can use to shift from going from using fossil fuels to using renewables? Climate justice is a theme that's threaded throughout multiple sessions, but then we have one session that's really dedicated on diving into climate justice or injustice in many cases, because it's important to understand that different communities and people are disproportionately impacted by climate impacts. So we really need to think about equity and inclusivity when we start building these climate action plans. We're going to talk about circular economy and sustainability. This will be led by Sandra Goldmark, who's going to share in a little bit, so I won't dive too deep into that. And we also talk about climate communication and conversation. As you heard, this is a really important skill to onboard support, especially when you are trying to show your local government officials what the constituents really want. So how do you convey that message in a really clear and concise way? We are going to talk about applied solutions in action. So learning from different sustainability practitioners about how to implement sustainable practices into real world applications. And finally, climate solutions and collective action. So we're going to talk about local community initiatives, how to include various stakeholders, and the role that young people play in climate action. So this summer, we have 7 Columbia Climate School experts that are going to be leading lessons and activities in the program. And we all are from a variety of backgrounds and sectors. So it really is an interdisciplinary approach to teaching on climate. And Sandra's with us, so I will invite Sandra to introduce herself, her background, and some of the lessons that she teaches.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, Laurel. It's so nice to see those pictures of the Green Mountain. I love this program, and I love the students. I think this will be my 3rd year, I think my 3rd year going up, and I really enjoy this program. So as Laurel mentioned, I teach at Barnard College, and I'm an associate dean at the Climate School. My focus and my passion is the circular economy. So thinking of better business models, reclaiming cultural practices, building the right policies that will help us as a global community do a much better job at production, consumption, and hopefully much less disposal of stuff. So if you're not familiar with circular economy, it can be a design framework. I'm actually originally a designer. It's an economic model. It's a waste reduction strategy. It's a mindset. Circularity is based on how nature works, and it simply means thinking of any waste products from one cycle as fuel for another. So it's very intuitive, whether you're thinking about managing city waste or designing clothing or building an exciting new business or changing the way they serve and dispose of food in your cafeteria. Circularity is a really great way to try to solve some of those problems. I love teaching this circularity thing because circularity works at all different scales. You can be working at the scale of your cafeteria, or you can be thinking globally, and the skills and mindset and tools are the same. So when you're in the class with me in the Green Mountains program, we'll do a little bit of learning, Circularity 101, what is it? And then you'll spend the bulk of the time working on a pitch. You'll find a system or a product or a service that is linear and wasteful and just generally makes your skin crawl. And you will redesign it to be circular. And then you'll pitch your redesign to your classmates. So it's a chance to do some problem solving, a chance to reframe how you think about some of these familiar products and systems in our life. And then there's a little chance to really get good at making the case, at helping do that persuasive storytelling, so that when you go into your school asking for change, you have the skills, not just the what do you think you should do, but some real skills for how to ask for change and how to advocate and make those changes last in your community. And I can't wait to get up there to Vermont.
Thanks, Sandra. So we will circle back, circular economy. We'll circle back to Sandra in a little bit to share some of the pictures and talk about some of the projects that students created. Our next expert is Laurel DeSera. Laurel is a graduate student and research assistant at the Columbia Climate School. And right now, Laurel is researching how mosquito-borne diseases are impacted by climate. So she's really focusing on improving subseasonal to seasonal forecasts and using these models to show decision makers how to improve the livelihoods of their constituents. Laurel co-teaches the climate science primer, as well as the science of climate change lesson. Miriam Nelson is also a graduate student, a PhD student in the Earth and Environmental Sciences at Columbia University and NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies. So Miriam is really interested in how severe hazards will change under warming and the vulnerability of people and ecosystems to these changes. So she works with really large data sets to model simulations to better investigate regional climate and ecosystem dynamics related to precipitation and drought. So Miriam is going to be co-teaching with Laurel on the climate science primer, as well as climate modeling and projections. Miriam also, in a couple years back, I think before she was doing her PhD program, was creating these educational online videos to teach people about climate change. So if that is something that you're really interested in, you'll have to talk to Miriam. Martin Dietrich Brauch is a lead researcher at the Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment. He leads economic and legal research, training, advisory work with a focus on legal and policy frameworks and practices for sustainable investment to achieve climate change mitigation and adaptation goals. So Martin teaches sustainable development goals in the Paris Agreement, decarbonization pathways, monitoring and measuring progress, global governance, and international law. So Martin has unique expertise that kind of toggles between decarbonization, economic pathways, as well as a legal lens. Josh DeVincenzo is an assistant director in education and training at the National Center for Disaster Preparedness and an adjunct assistant professor at the Columbia Climate School. So Josh focuses on developing learning experiences associated with FEMA training projects that navigate housing and economic recovery. So Josh, he's going to be teaching on climate change communication and conversation. How do you articulate the challenges and solutions you're bringing forward to onboard support? And he's going to teach the preparedness tools and strategies session, which is a simulation that is essentially students will feel like they are in the midst of a natural or unnatural disaster, and they have to work together to think about how they are going to respond to that and build back with resilience. Hope Sutherland is going to be joining us for the first year in this program. Hope is a project coordinator at the National Center for Disaster Preparedness and a teaching associate for some of the core courses in the Columbia Climate School's master's program. So Hope is most interested in climate resilience measures that center human and environmental health in working with others to create more sustainable and intentional spaces. Essentially, all things that translate science into action. So Hope is going to be assisting Josh in co-teaching the communication and conversation lessons, as well as the disaster resilience simulation. And finally, my name is Laurel Zamatihi again. I have a background in marine science as well as sustainability science, but I have been teaching high school students, undergraduates, teachers, and sometimes professional learners for about 10 years now. So I'm really excited to be working with all of you. I'm going to be teaching climate change in your community. We're going to be talking about climate impacts, as well as youth for climate action lesson. So how do you as young people think about addressing a challenge in your community by creating either an adaptation or a mitigation project that involves stakeholders, that is thinking through all the pieces to make a project like this feasible. We're going to kind of break it down and think about how best to create change. And I also lead the field lessons that we'll talk about in a little bit. So there are a whole lot of learning modalities that we use for purposeful learning in this program. These are just a few of the examples, but you can see that we focus much more than just lecture-based learning. We want to get students in the field to collect their own data and analyze it. We want students to debate and discuss with each other, to collaborate, to use teamwork skills to reach a solution. We also want students to engage in case studies and simulations to kind of have an understanding of what it will be like to problem solve for real life challenges. And we wanted to give you a sneak peek at some of the program content and lessons and activities that you can expect on the Green Mountains program. And the first one is the Climate Science Primer. So since there are no prerequisites for this program, we want to start with a primer so we make sure that all students are starting at the same spot. So this is going to provide a lot of foundational knowledge that you can build upon. So this is, as I mentioned, led by Miriam and Laurel. It's going to focus on the difference between weather and climate, the various types of climate classifications around the world, how climate is influencing society. And we're going to talk about, we're going to do a review on the Earth's spheres and how they interact with each other. And then finally, we are going to play this fun demonstration / game that is going to show the function of solar radiation and greenhouse gases. So for the sake of time, I'm going to not play the video, but it is a whole cohort activity where some students are greenhouse gases and they have to tag the radiation the infrared radiation as it's leaving the Earth, which then represents kind of a warming around our atmosphere. So we also have the preparedness tools and strategies session. This is that simulation post-disaster. So it's a fast-paced activity that facilitates an understanding of the emergency notification process of a county government during and after a major unnatural disaster. So students, they are going to experience like they're in a call center. It's going to be a little chaotic, but it really forces all of them to think creatively and collaboratively to get to a solution. The decarbonization's pathway lesson that's led by Martin is going to share about the broad range of policy approaches and technologies that are needed for the rapid reduction of CO2. And this includes, but isn't limited to, energy efficiency measures, behavioral changes, electrification, renewables, hydrogen and hydrogen-based fuel, bioenergy, and carbon capture use and storage. So he is going to dive deep into that and how you might decarbonize different industries. One of the activities that we do is this climate negotiations. So all students are going to come together to role play in this climate negotiation that's really on the premise of an international climate summit, like the COP conferences. So students are each going to represent a specific nation or negotiating bloc, and in some cases, interest groups like the fossil fuel industry. And they all have to debate, negotiate, and come to consensus in what their interests are, while also trying to stay below 2 degrees C and ideally 1.5 degrees C. So it's a really great way for students to understand some of the challenges that occur at these international conferences, as well as how to drive solutions forward. And Martin will be a part of this session. Martin actually was a youth delegate at one of the first Conference of the Parties, the first COPs ever. So it's really fun to hear his on the ground perspective of how these conferences really roll out. Okay, so I want to invite Sandra back, and maybe we can talk through some of the most unique circular economy projects that you heard, like anything that where students were taking a linear system and making it circular.
Hi, yeah, I'll be really quick because I know we want to have time for questions. And you all heard from me before, but I'll just say they pick a whole crazy range of things that they want to make go from linear to circular. Some things you might expect, like electronics, clothing. I think this was the group that picked frozen packaged chicken, which was a really interesting one. And my favorite, I think, from the Green Mountains was they wanted to redesign coffins to be made out of mycelium, out of mushrooms. And first of all, it was actually a really great product. And the delivery was so good. I remember that group. They were just so funny. And so they really sold it. those are some of the highlights.
Thanks, Sandra. That is the one that always comes to mind for me as well. All right. So we mentioned that there are different field activities that really allow students to gain some technical and research-based skills through field data collection and analysis. No, students aren't doing their own formal research projects just due to time constraints, but these activities are going to help prepare them with some skills in collection and analysis that they will need for their college careers. So here we are doing a survey, a biological survey of the fish in the local area as a proxy for water quality health. And then we're comparing the diversity and the type of species that we catch with some of the water quality data that we do on the side. So the two groups come together and they kind of share their findings and draw some conclusions about the health of this water body. We also do a survey of macroinvertebrates or tiny water bugs in the water to assess stream health. So while one is more focused on lakes and water bodies, this is more focused on streams. And this protocol is actually used all over the country as a way to assess stream health with very inexpensive and a limited amount of tools needed and absolutely no chemicals. So it's a really accessible way for students to better understand their environment. So tree rings can tell us a lot about the past. They're kind of like time capsules for us. And so students can actually core a tree and analyze the past growth years to better understand what the temperature and precipitation patterns were like for the age of that tree. So these are some methodologies that are advised from the group at Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, the Dendrochronology Lab. So we are using the same equipment that researchers are using all over the world to better understand climate. We take a visit to the Darren Freshwater Institute at Lake George, which is really a great opportunity to learn from other researchers about the research they're doing on how climate is impacting their region locally, especially and particularly the lake. So it is a really wonderful partnership and a great day, one of the excursions that we take. And the other excursion that we take is to Burlington, Vermont, where we hear from a panel of sectors that are implementing sustainability into their work. This year, we are planning to do a day of tracks where students can choose a specific intersection of climate and another sector to really understand some of the challenges and solutions that can be used in that sector to address climate change. And of course, we just get to explore Vermont. There's a lot of time for us to have fun and make friends and enjoy all that the Green Mountains has to offer, such as berry picking, and we interact with alpacas. We go to a sustainable farm. We have bonfires. It's just a really great summer. And the climate action projects. We can't forget that students, their final deliverable is to create a project that is addressing one of the challenges that their community faces due to climate. So students will develop their own project. Everyone does their own project, and then they present their projects to all of us at the end for feedback. And then finally, we celebrate at the end of the program with a keynote speech by Governor Peter Shumlin, the 81st governor of Vermont. Okay, I am going to pass it over to Becca to share about the application next steps.
Great. Yes. So students completing 9th through 12th grade are eligible to apply. And we also consider applications from motivated rising 9th graders, so current 8th graders as well. And the application is all online. You visit the website, click apply, and begin your application. And you will be prompted to create a login. And this login will become what we call the digital locker. And this is a digital portal that is your one-stop shop from beginning an application to where you'll find all the necessary information and documents to get ready for your program. And so when you apply, you'll be asked to enter basic information like your name, your grade, how we get in touch with you. And then the most important step is to select your program choice and to secure space in the program with a signed agreement form and a $700 payment, which is a $200 application fee and a $500 tuition deposit. And then once that space is secured, you'll know that your space is held in the program, and the rest of the application will open up for you to complete the remainder. And this consists of a short personal statement, just a paragraph or so, where you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to join the program and what you hope to get out of it. And then we also ask for 2 teacher reference forms. And for this, you simply list the teacher's name and contact information in the digital locker, and an automatic form will be sent out to them for them to complete online. So you don't have to physically obtain the letters of reference because we know teachers are very busy. And then your application is considered through a selective process. We have a rolling admissions process, and we will accept and review applications until a program fills. I should note that our programs, especially this time of year, and especially the Columbia Climate School and the Green Mountains program, are in high demand and very popular, and they are filling quickly, and space is limited. So if you're interested in applying, we encourage you to go online and start your application and hold that space as soon as possible. And of course, reach out if you have any questions about the process or about the program. And I think that is it. Laurel, do you have anything else, or do we want to open it up to questions? Yes, that's the contact info.
No, that's perfect. We're happy to take questions. I see that we had a few in the Q&A here. So maybe I will open up this question to Srishti. So this question is, if students typically go with their friends, how would it be for students that go without knowing anyone, especially in terms of making friends? So if you would like to answer that live, feel free. If not, I can also jump in too.
No, of course. That I was probably a bit more worried about that than I should have been going into the program. Like, I was 15 and it was my first time being away from home for an extended period of time. And I've never really had a roommate before, and I'm also an only child. So I had all these different concerns going into the program. But like, on the first day of the program, as soon as I walked in, there was just a bunch of different people my age who were ready to like greet me, welcome me into some activity, and everyone was just so welcoming upon arrival. And I found that I quickly make friends, and this is coming from someone who is like somewhat extroverted, but I'm also a little bit introverted. So even with all of that, it was still really easy to make friends. Just the kind of people you find in that community are very deep, very they have a lot of substance. And I mean, if you're going to be in a program with people for 2 weeks who and they're spending 2 weeks out of their summer to learn about something as in-depth as climate change, they're going to have that substance. They're going to have like similar values to you. So the community is just so nice. We actually like cried on the last day of the program. Like, it was something out of a movie scene.
You know, that last day is a tough one, but I agree. I think we create a really amazing community. And logistically, I don't think there are too many people that come as friends on the program actually. And if they do, we try not to have them, be roommates or in the same group, because we want students to make friends outside of who they already know. But I see Becca popped on. So.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you both. And just to add, we do limit the number of friends. We carefully curate our groups on the back end, the admission side. So we keep an eye out for friends and also just people coming from, if they're coming from the same school. We do sort of closely limit that so that everyone is not a bunch of friends showing up who already know each other, because we really do put a huge emphasis on building community. And as Srishti said, just everyone getting really, really close. And they're often tears on the last day, which are reflective of that.
Amazing. So someone asked, can you get a scholarship for this program? Yes. However, our scholarship applications concluded March 15th. So keep in mind that March 15th date is one that we hold to annually. So it usually opens quite early. before the end of the year, so around December, and it will be open till through March. So yes, we do offer scholarships, but unfortunately they're closed for this summer. All of the information in this recorded session will be up on our Climate School YouTube as well as on our website. So absolutely, as you review any of this information, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you have. There are also a few questions in the chat or here that were already answered, but maybe I'll read them aloud just in case there are other people that have similar questions. So are there considerations for offering high school or college credits in the future? So at the moment, this is a non-credit program. Students do receive a certificate of participation at the conclusion of the program that they can share on their college applications as part of their CVs. But right now, it is not a credited program. So students, they are involved in their own climate action project, and they develop skills in collecting research and analyzing that data. They are able to present their work. Every student presents their own climate action project at the end of the program to get feedback from their peers as well as all of us. So the goal is that they can actually take that project and implement it back home. So the work doesn't stop after the program's over, it continues. And there are students that have the ability to share this through the Climate School Network. So we have a video series called Climate Live K-12. It is a series that invites experts and students to share about the work that they've done in their community. And we've actually had a few of the Green Mountains alumni share about their projects during that series. So they can, one, get the word out about their project if they're trying to onboard support or usership, as well as showing young people how to get there, how to get to this end goal. So absolutely. And then if it is a more research focused project, sharing at, youth conferences or science fairs, we would absolutely be happy to kind of think through those projects and help support you in any way we can. Perfect. Let's see. Becca, do you want to share a little bit about the roommate process?
Yes. So as Srishti said, there are roommates on this program. Putney, one thing we're kind of known for is taking a very, very deliberate hands-on approach, number one, to making sure that everyone is making friends and doing a little bit of social engineering to enable that, especially in the beginning. But we also, that comes down to even how we pair roommates. So we look at everything from grade, personal interests of each student, where students are coming from, and we pair students based on some commonality. So we try to pair people who are probably from different cities so that they're not exactly aligned, but they may have a very specific interest that no one on the program has, and we know that they're going to immediately bond over this thing. So maybe we'll put them together. And all of the students, we should also say, reside in dorms at Castleton University, and the staff also reside on the same floors as the students. So they're right there anytime they need them.
Perfect. Thanks, Becca. I think that is it for questions. So I thank you all for joining us for the past hour. And apologies for going a couple minutes over, but we really wanted to make sure we answered all the questions. So you had all the information you needed to complete your application this summer. As always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us either by email or by phone. We'd be happy to answer it. But if there are no other questions, then we look forward to seeing you this summer.